Welcome back to Culture and the Effects in the Classroom. The interaction of language and culture are connected by two forms: the language we speak, which is the written and spoken form, and the culture, which is defined by the activities of people, usually governed by a geographic boundary. If you look at the United States, people in New York act differently than people from Louisiana, and people from Louisiana act differently from people from Arizona, and people from Arizona act differently from people from Washington State. In the United States, we have 6 different regional cultures or different subcultures. This is broken down even further instead of the geographical boundaries into ethnic groups. The educational institutes must develop programs to help teachers see the connections between language, culture, and learning. When you get a new student or new ELL student from another culture or another country, they bring with them different worldviews, values, and different trains of thought. The way they would do math would probably be different than the way you do math. This is evident from World War II, where the French underground, in order to find out if a person was French or possibly German, they would give them a math test. The person would have to do the math test in written form. The way they did it would have to be the French way. If they did it the German way, then they believed that they were a spy. And action was taken swiftly. The goals of an ELL student usually doesn't match the goals of the school. When a student feels that his or her culture is being disrespected, they may become withdrawn and may not achieve. A lot of Hispanic students feel this way. Some school districts have a 70% Hispanic dropout rate. The biggest problem is a lot of teachers come from non-minority areas in the North, and they view the world as in their own culture. So they don't see the ELL student's perspective in the learning in the way a student does. Teachers will disrespect the student accidentally, or they would exclude the student from classroom activities. When they do this, the teacher tells the student that the student's culture is not really worth the teacher's time, and then the student begins to withdraw. Students have a sense of identity and self-worth, which are associated with each other. The high sense of self-worth, most learning is the ability to learn. The teachers can help this, but facing the challenges, social support, which means the teacher needs to involve the other students. The teachers need to involve the students' cultures, and need to show respect for that culture. The language is intrinsic to the expression of the culture, and it demonstrates the means of communicating values, beliefs, and customs, and it really is important to the students. The teacher should allow the student to be able to speak the native language in school without being told you can only speak English, because when you tell the students that they can only speak English, you're showing that their language is not respected, and the culture is how the students see themselves. It's built up from one generation to another. Every community, a culture group, builds on its own values, beliefs in the way the community is living. Some students may come to the USA and may never adapt to American culture. Others may want to come here and just jump on American culture, becoming instant Americans. Lev Vygotsky's sociocultural theory of cognitive development stated that human development learning occurs as a result of an individual's reaction with society. Vygotsky's theory comprises concepts such as culture-specific tools, private speech, and the zone of proximal development. Vygotsky's theories stress the fundamental role of social interaction in the development of cognition, as he believed strongly that community plays a central role in the process of making meaning. Vygotsky's sociocultural theory of cognitive development by Saul MacLeod, Ph.D. Unlike Piaget's notion that children's development must necessarily precede their learning, Vygotsky argued, learning is a necessary and universal aspect of the process of developing culturally organized, specifically human psychological function. Piaget, who emphasized universal cognitive change, i.e., all children would go through the same sequence of cognitive development regardless of their cultural experiences, Vygotsky leads us to expect variable development depending on cultural diversity. Vygotsky agreed with Piaget that the development of cognitive abilities takes place in stages, and he also agreed broadly with the description of the stages. However, he viewed cognitive development as a social process where children learn from experienced adults. Vygotsky stated that language has two functions. Inner speech is used for mental reasoning, and external speech is used to converse with others. When a learner doesn't feel attached to a society or part of the culture, they may fail. This is caused by feeling of being detached and not wanted from the culture or the classroom. The language is sent to part of their culture, and by not allowing the students to use it, is counterproductive. Many students feel that they must adapt and speak the language to succeed. The teacher must understand the students that are going to speak to different people, different ways, and depending on the situation. And these are known as social registers. This is demonstrated through the idea of linguistic relativity, also known as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which is a principle suggesting that the structure of a language influences its speaker's worldview or cognition, and thus individuals' languages determine or shape their perceptions of the world. That says that language we use determines how the way we think. Sapir-Whorf hypothesis was created when anthropologists went to Alaska, and they discovered that the Inuits or the native people of Alaska had 100 to 1,000 different words for the word snow. And if you go through Asia, you'll find out this is similar to the word rice, which in the Philippines and in Cambodia, the word rice means meal. In Khmer, the Cambodia language Yumbai, I'm hungry. I want something to eat. Knam ot bite means I'm really hungry. Yumbai, do you want something to eat? And bite means rice. If you say yumbai, you're not saying I want rice, you're saying I want to eat. In Japan, raisu is the word for rice, yakimasu is fried rice. This Sapir-Whorf hypothesis states that the language we speak determines the thought process, and determines our cognitive categories, and influences our thoughts and certain kinds of non-monotistic behavior. Despite this, teachers must remember that all learners must understand and appreciate their own culture and identity, and about much respect the other students' cultures. Denying the rights of their cultural depression limits this expression to unique perspectives on life, and may cause animosity towards the teacher, the class, the school, and mainstream culture. How would students' identities link to self-worth? Many students identify themselves, especially immigrants, with a national origin of human ethnicity. They don't feel they're Americans despite living in America. And this is true with a lot of expat Americans that go live overseas, like the Chinese Americans who visit mainland China, while they are visiting the Chinese, consider them American. And some students' parents never really integrate into American society. Children feel left out or not wanted by the community if they change. The children want to dress up like Americans, but their parents don't want them to. The students feel they're being rejected by their family, but they're also being rejected by the mainstream culture. When this happens, they feel they're not wanted. And many blame their culture or their identity. When a teacher shows different cultures in the class, it shows similarities and the opposites. The student can improve their self-worth because they will become more receptive by the other students and believe that there's not much difference between each culture. It'll enhance their learning. If the learner feels that his culture is not respected, they are going to be doomed for failure as they will reject the lesson. The students with high self-esteem will reject values and educational goals from the mainstream culture because it clashes with their beliefs. They will accept educational goals that are consistent with the goals of their culture. Self-identity and self-worth, the two support other aspects that are success in school and success on personal resources. You really need to work with the problems, resources, and the student to make sure that the student is successful. Development of personal resources will disengage any problems with the student. You understand this is their culture, this is what they expect, this is their goals, and this is what we, as teachers, should do. That is all the time we have for today. Thank you for being here. I hope to see you next time.